you a really cool, simple illustration technique. I love teaching this technique. Students take to it right away and can really take it and do cool things with it, and it's actually very simple. So follow me along in Illustrator and we can practice using the pen tool and learn a new illustration style. So I have here in Illustrator this photo. I like to use this Lady Gaga photo for this example. She's got a very dynamic outfit and lots of fun shapes to work with, and we are going to take this image and turn it into a stylized illustration that looks like this. And then once we have this done, we can save it as an EPS and drop it into another document like an InDesign document, or we can save it and use it as a standalone illustration. So here we go. It's very simple. You'll want to focus on your layers in this process so that you don't get lost. And what I like to do is build from the back and the big shapes forward. And so each time I build a big chunk of this illustration with the pen tool, I then lock it on a layer. So you'll see here I have a couple big main shapes like the dress and the bow, and then I add some details. And it's still very simplified, very stylized, but it's kind of a fun technique to use, especially for celebrities. As you can see here, I used this reference photo. I found it on the internet, and if I zoom in, it's very pixelated. It wouldn't work to print. It's not high enough quality, but it's still high enough resolution that I can see the shapes in detail. So it's a great reference photo for this illustration technique, even though it wouldn't work very well as a photo because I pulled it off the internet and don't have the rights to it, and it's pixelated and it wouldn't work to drop into my main document. But you'll see here I even could do things like extend the bow and finish off the parts of this photo that get cut off. So let's jump in here. Like I mentioned, I'm going to start with the pen tool, and I'm going to eyedrop that pink from her costume. I have my image on its own layer and it is locked in there. And if you are a good, nice and tidy, clean designer, you can even label your layer as the photo. Just make sure it's locked so it doesn't get in your way, and then start drawing on your second layer. You can zoom in as you need to make sure that you can see clearly. And using this pen tool, I'm just going to click and find points around here and click and drag to get this main shape of Lady Gaga's dress in here. I'm just going to go straight along the bottom, and then I'm going to follow this back up, and you'll see as I click, I stretch the anchor points and make them curve. Click and pull with my mouse to stretch those anchor points around, and then I'm just going to imagine where I think it would finish off. And if you need to, just switch to outline so you can follow things around and get those lines. And I'm just following around where her dress follows. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the bow. I'm going to click in here and follow the shapes of this bow around. And just get those main shapes. Get the big chunk of that bow. And again, the picture cuts off, but I'm going to imagine that that bow extends up here. And then you'll see when I'm ready to close that shape, you'll see that little circle right there on the pen tool. And I now have two shapes to represent Lady Gaga's bow and her dress. And I'm just going to lock these layers for right now so they don't get moved, and turn off that layer, and then come over here, zoom in, and I am going to follow the shape of her face. Now the hair comes in front of her face, so you can follow these lines exactly, or you can just click around and finish that to get the main color. And then again, I'm going to eyedrop that to get the right color. And I'll turn that one off as well, and then start a new layer and come around her hair. And I'm I'm just clicking points where I see fit and dragging that along. And let's see, I did not make the shape of her face precise, so that means I want to follow along with the shape of this hair very precisely so that it can layer over the top of this. And then if I want to do something here, let me zoom in for you here, where I start with a curve and then I want to go straight across for those bangs. If you click and drag the mouse, you'll see the anchor point, and then if you click one more time, it will make that a hard edge, and you can just do that and then keep clicking and dragging where you see fit. Going to finish off the hair here. Now you can follow these as closely or take liberty with it. It's your choice and how you want the illustration to look. You could do the same technique, being really precise and specific about the colors you pull and the shapes you follow, but I'm going for a more stylized look with this one here, so I'm not going to worry too much about it being very exact. And then again, I just take this eyedropper tool, my shape that I just drew is selected, and I'm going to click on there and get some of the color of her hair. So now you'll see if I turn my shapes back on, they're not quite in the right order. I'm just getting it blocked in here. So I can unlock some of these layers. I can make this face fit in here a little bit better. And using my selection arrow, expand that to fit so that there's no background image behind there. And this bow should really be in front of the hair, even though I drew it on my first layer. So I can drag that up. If you want to drag something between layers, get your selection arrow, click on it, and then look over here in the layers. As I'm clicked on something, you'll see a little square indicating that I have something selected. You can actually click right on this square and pull it up, and it goes to the top layer. So now I have the bow in front of the hair, and I think I would like to come back and edit this hair so that it crosses the bow. I can take my direct selection arrow and click here and pull points so that they're behind the bow. So far I have the main block chunks in, and if I zoom in here, I think I'm going to add a secondary color back behind her hair. I'm just going to click and make these shapes because they're going to be in the very back, and I'm going to make them a little bit darker in color than her current hair, and I'm going to turn it to outlines just so I can see and click in here and find a color that's a little bit darker. And then using key commands, or you can navigate to Object, Transform, Arrange. Okay. Again, I'm going to be using key commands, or you can navigate up to Object, Arrange, Send Backwards, or Send to Back. But you can always do that with key commands as well. And it's Command Shift and then use the brackets to bring forward and backwards. So now you'll see I want these to actually be behind the face, so I'm going to move them down to a new layer as well. So here is my blocked in photo illustration of Lady Gaga. And now I'm going to turn off my main shapes and start a new layer just to do some detailing. So if I click back over to my final image, you'll see I picked up some of the dark shadows within her bow, and then I did some detailing to get some shape of her face, the lips and the eyes, and then all of those eyelashes, which really will make the image come to life here. So let me zoom in here. And again, it's just analyzing the photo, analyze the shapes of the face, and then see where you want to copy them, and feel free to experiment and turn things off and on as you go. Now if you Again, you can use the direct selection arrow if something isn't quite where you wanted it to be, and toggle those points to adjust them. And then you can turn these back on to see if it's lining up how you'd like. And I would actually like this to come just to the edge of her collar of her dress and fit right in there. So I'm using my selection arrow and then toggling that and rotating it till it's where I'd like it to be. I'm going to turn these back off to see more face shapes. Zoom into these lips and get that main shape. Now, a common mistake for beginning designers is to want to click every single point. But it's really a lot easier if you find a few main points and then you drag those anchor points around, and you'll get much smoother, easier to follow shapes. And what I mean by that, I'll show you on this bottom lip here. I've got a few points that I can easily adjust to get the lip shape just how I want it, and I'm following those edges along this photo. But new designers have a tendency when using the pen tool to want to be like this, and clicking every single point along the way to get it to be where you want it. And you're curving and following and clicking every single little point as you go. And that just really makes for a super messy, hard to adjust shape. So if I delete this whole thing here, you can really do this bottom lip with just a few points. You click at the corner, you come around to a point, and then you click and you drag that anchor point to get that smooth curve. And then I can click around here to get that next curve. And you'll see here, as I work my way around this shape, you really don't need that many points to achieve this look. Do the same thing with the teeth. Again, the teeth are behind the lips, so you can just click and get those how you'd like, and then just finish off the lip and send it behind the teeth and send it behind the lips there. And again, I use my key command, that's bring forward, command shift right bracket, command shift left bracket will send it back. And then fill in this shape here. And same thing, let's see. You want to get the tongue and then the black part going into her mouth here. So if I make this black shape and just kind of following this, again, it's going to be the very back, so it doesn't necessarily matter if it's a perfect edge. I can make that black and again send that back there. And to get the tongue, I can follow this shape right here. And then use a pink color. And then it's just merely a matter of getting what you want on top and what you want behind. So I'm going to send that tongue to the back. I'm going to send the dark black part of the mouth to the back, and then make sure the lips are on top. So I have my details currently on this top layer. I also did the nostrils. So again, zooming in here, finding the shapes, and just tracing what I see. It's really simple. You just trace the shapes that you can pick out from the pixels, and you'll see here as I zoom in just how pixelated this image actually is when you try to zoom in. So if you have trouble seeing the shapes, just zoom out a little bit. And then the same thing for the eyes here. And I'm just finding the shapes and coming around and doing this. So you just keep tracing these shapes that you see until you get your illustration the way you like it, as simple or as detailed as you'd like. And then you can take this, you can save it, and then you can drop this illustration into a larger document and add some text, and you have a pretty cool, interesting way to showcase this celebrity or whoever you'd like to highlight, and it adds a lot of personality and some style to the image rather than just using a standard photo. And this can also be a cool way to use it on a regular person, just anytime you want to add interest versus just using a plain photo. And it's a really fun technique. Again, experiment, try it out with different faces, different people, and you'll have these really cool vectorized illustrations of different people, and they can scale up and down as large as you'd like versus using a photo that will get super pixelated as you try to manipulate it and use it in your various documents. So hope you found that useful, and thanks for joining me.